about £53 million worth of turnover globally. Nabil Naamo, Group CEO of Topaz Detailing. Paintwork was the first session I had. Getting paintwork to look flawless. We had 450 people across 12 countries. We went viral in India, Romania, Germany as well.
Have you ever once thought, I'm going to fail? We've blocked the entire Topaz workshop at the minute for this podcast,
Yes.
which has just given everybody a reference to where I am. So Nabil, welcome to Road to Success.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for coming in the back of the van and allowing us to block your very busy workshop. And I'm sure that there's some slightly unhappy phases out there that they can't get the cars in and out for an hour, but I think the conversation will be worth it. So if I start with my first question that I pose to all my guests that come on, which is, Nabil, in your own words, who are you and what do you do?
Do you know what? I'll give you the corporate one, and I'll give you afterwards the reality. Corporate, I'm Nabil Naamo, Group CEO of Topaz Detailing. I'm the co-founder and CEO, so basically I'm in charge of building up the business from scratch, and that's my official title. That's what I do. But if you go down and dirty version, is I was a guy in a van who would be washing cars at £11 for a wash, and built up a business to now we're about 450 people and about £53 million worth of turnover globally. So yeah, that's sort of my official title as a group CEO. But really, who I am and what I did is I was a guy washing cars, and I managed to build a business.
So when you actually have a chance to pause for an hour, switch your phone off, which is a rare thing to do, and then say that out loud in a kind of calm environment, but with what you've built behind, how does that make you feel?
You know what? It makes me feel proud in one way, but still, I feel like there's a lot to go. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity. And I also feel that the system doesn't allow people to do what I did very easily. We don't. The educational system doesn't teach people to do things in the way that I did. It's almost like you got to go to school, you got to do your A-levels, you got to GCSEs, A-levels, you got to go to uni, do all that kind of stuff. And then you got to find a job as an analyst or in a bank, or you're working as a dentist, whatever it may be, which is totally fine. But for me, when I look back at myself and I go, great, I'm proud, I'm totally proud of what I did, and what me, myself and our business partners have accomplished. But it's, I feel also a bit of, what I want to say is not enough awareness of what I did, not enough people doing it, in my opinion.
So the amount of entrepreneurs that you see coming through from seed companies rather than something that was already there to be grown on, you're just not seeing any of that anymore.
Not seeing enough. And I think it's changing though. I mean, if you look at it in the last 10 years versus now, it's changing. But yeah, there's not enough. It's awareness.
Interesting that you say that, because I'm well aware of a massive part of our audience on Road to Success is detailers out in vans, one-man bands, two-man bands, small workshops, all the rest of it. Because of the amount of time that people spend in one area at one thing with an incredible amount of focus, podcast is quite a calm way of getting people into their kind of work. So they sit there and listen. I know that we've got people like Jimmy B listening, who will love his shout out, that we've got who deep cleans all about Armstrong's cars. They constantly, we've got this big audience of people. So I think you'll be a guest that first sentence, I'm not sure how that'll make the audience feel, because they're the kind of people that are thinking, how do you go from your one-man band shop or guy in a van, which is how you started, to what you see behind. So what was the first key step in your story back in the day, from going from a detailing van to kind of ending here? What's one critical moment that allowed change?
I think the critical moment is knowing who to have as your customer. I think that's very important. I think, and how to manage that customer. I think a lot of people let their pride get in the way when they're building up a business, and they would usually go, I'm not going to do that. I've been working my ass off. Sorry, I don't know if that's a swear word or not. I've been working myself, to be able to do things my way, and I'm not going to let my customer tell me how it needs to be done. That ego, a lot of people suffer with when they go from working for somebody to doing their own thing. They could be by themselves earning £15 an hour doing something themselves. But the issue is sometimes they go, it's my own business. I want to do things the way I want it done. For me, I've always looked at, I'm never the boss in my brain. My customers are my bosses. If I have investors, they're my bosses. Even my business partners, they're my bosses. And the mindset is, if you have that and you're able to look at what the customer really wants and tailor it to it helping you in your business, then that's how you start to get there. So,
and where did you learn that? Was there a specific vehicle or times that you ended up taking on work to give you that kind of mindset?
Do you know what? Yeah, there's been a lot of failures, a lot of experiments, lessons learned. I feel like working with the trade and dealers has been the biggest learning curve for us as a business.
Taking on a big trade contract with a big brand that comes in and says you can have all of our cars that come through our performance network.
100%. I mean, we started off with HRN back in the day, and it was purely just for detailing because we didn't do paint protection film back then. And it would be sort of, we got to the stage where we'd have VIPs coming in and going, oh, do you know what? I want to get you guys to detail my car, but I want it right from the dealer. And then the dealer would then be hearing, what's going on? Why is this company, why is this guy Nabil saying that the paintwork is bad? And genuinely, I wasn't sort of bad mouthing the paint. I was just genuinely just saying, this is what's the issues, or these are the issues on your paintwork. So anyway, that created a buzz where dealers were coming to us and going, right, a lot of our VIPs are complaining about the quality of the paint, so let's just go in with them and get them to fix our paint before it gets to the customer, which is great. And I thought, fantastic, that we fell into that, right? But it was in my mind, it was a strategy anyways. Once you go right to the top, you get the VIPs, then everyone else below it starts to come in slowly and surely. That was the plan. But then afterwards, when the dealer came to us, they're like, yeah, great, right, let's start giving you cars. That's when I pooped the bed, because at that point you've got all of a sudden SLAs, so you got service level agreements. You got people going, right, I'm going to give you a car, I need it back down, I need it done in 3 days. I'm going to give you this, your insurance needs to be in place, your team needs to be in place. So then they're calling me going, right, I got a car, I need it done in 2 days, the customer's picking it up. At that point, what do you do in that instance? So for me, it was literally like head down,
grabbing the business, kicking and screaming and dragging it to where you needed it to be.
Totally.
And it was wonderful because I mentioned to you before we started the podcast, it feels like 2 years ago to me, but the truth is it's actually 8 years ago I visited Topaz for the first time. We're currently at your London site today, which is what has become many sites, but wasn't the case back then. And I rarely do this on podcasts, just pick up my phone, but I had a camera back then before I even had my driver's license. It was a year before. I remember taking photos. That was my dad's Maserati MC Stradale at the time, a Viola Ophelia, I think that is, a Venster SV. And these were everything that turned up that day. Yanni in his Range Rover to that meet. You had two P1s come. And that was my first time ever coming to
Was that me
site.
with hair? I think I just saw that.
Are you in the photo?
Am I on the right hand side? Yes, that is me with hair. See, you didn't even recognise me.
I didn't recognise him with the hair.
There you go. There you go.
The hair and the tan.
That's
you need
it.
to go away, man.
No, that's me there. Look.
Oh, yeah.
That's me, mate. That's what happens. There you go. So that is what happens when you run a business with that many people. You go from there to this.
But that was the first time I ever saw this place, and I just knew then that I had to. I was so into my cars back then.
Yeah.
That kind of passion developing. I was lucky enough to get into a Cayman GTS in my earlier years of driving, and that was the first car that ever came to Topaz.
Amazing.
It was carmine red. It had full PPF. Like, the full work's done to it. It looks incredible.
Carmine red is nice.
It's a good colour.
Yeah.
And after that, there was a 911 GTS, and I remember when we picked it up, you'd had a tint done on the rear window.
Yeah.
One of you guys had a tint done on the rear window, and it was all murdered out of black. Hadn't asked for it, but it was all black and tinted.
Yeah.
I got on and I was like, that looks incredible. Like, well, it can be taken off, but we thought that you'd love this. I'm like, these guys are super cool. I was seeing them in all the YouTube creators that I grew up watching. Shmi 150 was here, Yanamite was here. So many guys who collaborate with you. So where's that bridge? How do you get once more from that van to that scenario?
Yeah.
What was the first physical premises you got, and how did you get into it?
So the first physical premises was a huge risk. That was so we started off at my parents' house, right? That's where I used to live. We were very lucky in the sense that we didn't pay rent or anything, so we could experiment a little bit. But all the money we had, we basically, I had an M3 at the time, sold it, and got a van, a $4,000 Karcher, which you definitely don't need to spend $4,000 on a jet wash, but I did because I thought it was necessary. And then so it was 15K working capital in our parents' house. So then we would have people coming in, friends that come in and go, oh, I heard you detailing cars and you're washing cars and stuff. Can you come and valet my car? And that's when we tried changing the name from valet to a detail. And that was the first bit. From a customer perspective, we were in the time when it was only Paul Dalton doing it, right? For Miracle Detail. He was the one showing off the £15,000, wax. That was literally all that detailing existed in the UK. Okay. It was all valeting. So at the time, I was like, no, we need to get detailing into the mainstream a bit more. And that's what happened. So I kept on pushing people and talking and speaking about things, forums. Have you detailed your car? Have you done this? And they're like, come again. What is it? What are you talking about? What's detailing? Paint correction? What's that? So we started educating the market, and people came to us at that time. So it was a real a push from a marketing perspective, but we didn't even know we were marketing at the time.
See, detailing though still is an expense to a customer.
Yeah.
And I think I remember when the Porsche was dropped off, seeing the bill going,
yeah.
Jeez Louise. Because the first reaction is, okay, the car looks amazing, it's clean.
Yeah.
But sometimes I get that from when I get my car valeted for 100 quid on the dot. I sometimes get that, oh, it's clean again reaction, and it's been really dirty.
Yeah.
What was your initial reaction if you were pioneering that? When people would come, say they had a £100,000 car and they were spending 5,000-10,000 quid, that's 5 to 10% of the value of the car on a detail, essentially. Was that really hard at the beginning to pioneer that mindset into people, even wealthy individuals?
Wealthy individuals are the hardest ones to sell to, because they're the ones that usually are either, if they've come from money, they've been taught to look after their money, or if they've built it up themselves, they've built it up because they've been smart with money, right? Yeah. So our client base are all clued on. So you can't, BS someone who deals with money all the time, right? They always feel like they're being sold to. So there's a specific way of telling people what they need. Is almost a guidance. So for us, we never said, it's a 10,000. I think we were in Top Gear once on the mag saying the most expensive wash, £10,000 for a wash or something like that.
And you were like, it's 20, bro.
I'm like, yeah, it's 20, please. Don't say 10. No. But it was just explaining to people that, look, it's not a £10,000 car wash. It is actually a lot of work involved. So, the average price would be about 5 to 6K plus VAT for a detail. But that would include changing the structure of your paint. That would essentially include re-leveling the clear coat of the car. So it's almost like a refinement of what the body work is.
So how did you learn to do that in a van?
Being obsessed. That's my issue. You'll see. When I get into something, my OCD just kicks in, and I get obsessed with the detail. So paintwork was the first obsession I had. Getting paintwork to look flawless. And then I was like, how do I do it? And I spent, honestly, about 18 months in my parents' garage, literally going through the car's paint. This is a poor C-Class. I can't remember what year it was, but yeah, well, it was a 2009, 2010.
Parents must have been over the moon. It was probably it was probably gleaming all the time.
Not at the beginning, mate, I'll tell you that. At the beginning, it had loads of strike-throughs everywhere. The Mercedes emblem would pop off every couple of minutes because I'd be there with the rotary, and the rotary would be like flying off somewhere else. So it was a learning curve. Let's just call it that. Yeah. And it was a learning curve. So then I started obsessing with the paintwork, right? How do we get paint to look absolutely perfect? I started looking into it on a molecular level in terms of how many microns come from the factory. What can we do with the clear coat? What's the deflection point of the sun? I started going crazy with it. And then afterwards, I started realizing actually, without having to go that crazy with paintwork, you can actually get a very good finish. And that's when I started making my first commercial versus my passion of getting something right. That's where that became a marriage.
I can see that obsession. That is absolutely seeping out of you. So how was that 2 years and you became a really good detailer, do you think? Was it a year? And then what? How long was it from starting the van to actually getting in part outside your parents as a first fixed premises and into a major site?
I think from from a paint correction perspective, it probably took me about 18 months of messing up paint to really go, right, now I know what needs to happen. I mean, we used to use this thing called the Cyclo, which is, again, you probably bring up a picture of it, but it's like a DA machine that looks like it's all out of metal, chrome. Every time you switch on, you get electric shock. So that kept me awake when it was 4 a.m. finishes. I lost my train of thought now.
That's all right.
So
You had that machine that was electrocuting you.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it was all flashback of me being electrocuted.
You literally had like a moment where it was like,
yeah,
exactly. PTSD.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, I got electrocuted that many times. Yeah, so from that side, it was about 18 months. After that, we were in the van. I'd say it was an experiment at the beginning, because I was thinking, right, let's create a scalable business by washing cars. My brother and I used to work for a company. Well, it's still around. Foxton's, the estate agent. The CEO is actually a very good friend of mine. He's doing a fantastic job there now. But they'd go around in minis. So they'd have all these minis with amazing decals on them and like stickers and all this kind of stuff. So we would know in each one of these sort of estate agents, they would have 20 cars, 30 cars parked up there waiting to be cleaned. And I'm like, right, that's where we're going to get into the market of cleaning cars. So I got the van. I was there with 1 or 2 guys with me, and then we'd go to all these different Foxtons and start washing cars for 11 quid. I then quickly realized that I'd be spending the whole day washing cars, and I'd be making 100 quid, maybe 150 quid. Yeah. So it was, the washes just took too long because my perfection came out, and I was like, no, it needs to be right and all that kind of stuff. At that point, that's when I started pushing the detailing side. That's when things started picking up. Because then I was like, right, I'm going to get in one job. My first job was an RX-8, my mate's car. And when I've been used to sort of tapping away £11 a wash, now it was £350 for 3 days work. And I was like, okay, so I'm in one place, I'm learning how to do this, and I'm able to charge 350 quid for 3 days work. I'm like, right, okay, there's something there. And that's where the whole ideology of let's stop doing the van work and let's start doing the detailing work and have a premises. So parents' house was the first premises, if you want to call it that, but we didn't pay anything for it. But then the actual first real lockup was in High Street, Kensington. And that's the point where the highest risk for me is the first point where I'm like...
So that's not cheap.
It's cheap now if you look at it. It was like $1,500 a month or something like $1,000 a month. But it was a lot considering that we weren't getting revenues. I mean, it was a little bit of revenue, and every time we had any money coming in, we would put it into materials, we would put it into fuel costs and van costs and stuff like that.
Just all constantly being reinvested.
Reinvested.
Where did you get that business prowess from, that spark? 'Cause what you referred to at the start was the entrepreneurs, you just don't see so much of it happening. So what made you do that? Because you mentioned you were already thinking with the van, how is this scalable? You had that mindset. Where does that come from?
I think it comes from my family. So my granddad was an entrepreneur. He had factories in Iraq for clothing. He had like a massive retail business in Iraq. My granddad on my mum's side was a super successful businessman. He did loads with pharmaceutical stuff, machinery, insurance companies. I mean, they were both really successful.
Were you seeing that at a young age?
I was hearing about it. I was too young to see it, but I remember snippets in Iraq when I used to go to my granddad's factory, and I'd be like, wow, all of this is incredible. Like these machines, how can you afford it? And all these people. So for me, that was amazing. But then obviously all of that fizzled into less and less to the point where it became nothing, because obviously my parents are immigrated from Iraq to the UK. And on my granddad's side, he had bad habits to casino and stuff like that. So all of that sort of funds just dissipated. So for me, I saw it happen for both my grandparents, but I never had it growing up. It was, we had a, nice life, a middle class life. I went to Brentford, Gunnersbury Catholic school, stuff like that. And it was just okay life. It was okay. But I remember my dad getting really stressed about the phone bills, and I'd be like spending too much on the phone bill, or this cost would be too much about his car. If it broke down, he'd be really stressed out about it. So all that fueled me to want to succeed. all of that fueled me to want to be able to go to that point where I'm like, you know what, I'm going to look after you. I am going to have that financial freedom. And that's been an obsession of mine. Again, I told you I obsess about things. When I get it in my brain, that's it. It doesn't stop, you know? So I think seeing what happened to my dad and how hard he's been trying to make ends meet, to what happened to my grandparents and my granddad, and seeing all that kind of stuff, that's where I feel like it's ingrained in me.
Have you ever once thought, I'm going to fail?
I think it happens probably every quarter.
Interesting. That was a real profound thing for me, because I know that I have those moments briefly when it's just all stacking up. And it's like a natural human reaction, but you push through every time.
You're spot on. Exactly the conversation we had before we started recording, right?
Everyone's seen out the back now for a second. We're just talking audio. I'm going to drop the curtain in the door because it's probably quite noisy, and just open this side door here. We have to shut the door. You've probably seen that the cars have gone, but at least now you know where we are.
Yeah.
Because it was rather noisy in the end. There was so much work going on out there. They managed to stay quiet for a few minutes, and then boom, it just all kicked off.
You know what will happen is, because if there isn't too much noise there, that means they're not doing enough work, and then they're going to be worried that I want to go out there and scream at them.
You're right here. You're right in the belly of the beast, watching everybody work. And you mentioned 450 people now across.
Yeah.
How many places have you? I mean, I wrote them all down, but remembering Bristol, Bahrain, Dubai, Kuwait, Leeds, London, Midlands, Qatar, Southampton, Taiwan, Thailand.
Yes, and I think I think there's a few Romania, Germany as well. We're about 20 studios across 12 countries right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And was the first one here, was London first?
London was first. Yeah.
You mentioned you had your lockup in Kensington.
Yep.
How did London come around here?
So lockup in Kensington, that was our first studio, and then after that we then took a unit next door, which I think you probably came to 8 years ago.
Yep.
That was unit 15, and that was our first sort of ever proper lease, not a lockup, of an actual industrial building, and that was in 2011. So that was the first one that we did. And that's because we had HRO who were literally, the service center was right next door, and we would be doing their cars. So we moved right next to our customer.
What kind of commitment was that from you to then go into that first building? Was that a huge step in front of the business? Were you absolutely scared to death?
Look, I mean, the first initial commitment was getting that lockup in Kensington, right? That $1,000 a month. I was like, how am I going to be able to afford to pay $1,000 a month? And then it was the first employee. The first employee was, 1,500 quid or something. And I was like, I'm not even paying myself. How am I going to pay somebody else? But then I had to take that risk. And it was like, you have to take the plunge. Otherwise, you're never going to do it. And then with Unit 15 next door, that was the first real, like, I'm putting my balls on the line type of thing, because I'm going to put in a 40 grand deposit. I have to put a lease, sign a lease for 10 years. So there's a lot of commitment there. So, I mean, that's when really the stakes were sort of getting higher and higher at that point.
But you had HRO in to supply you with cars. Is that still intact now?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a longest standing customer.
Would you say that's one of the hardest moments in your business journey so far with Topaz?
Yeah, it would have been.
Because obviously as an outsider looking in, and as in the car world, everybody talks, everybody sees everything. I remember the moment that a competitor set up basically on the other side of the trading estate.
Correct.
Am I right in saying?
Yep.
I don't believe they're there anymore.
No.
All right, and so that's correct. No. What was that like for you, finding that out for the first time?
That was the first time in my mind I thought, okay, this is going to get interesting, because there wasn't anyone that was doing what we did, but is geared towards trade work. Because, I mean, that was the initial plan for me. It was, you have to invest, and a lot of people, a lot of your viewers and listeners will relate to this, is when you go to a van is comfortable in the sense that you're in a van, you can go, you can get a good job, and then if you haven't got any work in for a week or so, it's okay, you can make ends meet. But when you have a studio or a site, it changes the dynamic. Your rent is still there, your costs are still there, and then when you add in a dealer on top of it who want you to do things in a certain way, then you have to start hiring staff. And then the more staff, the more costs. The more costs, the more pressure there is to actually bring in the revenue. So for me, it was just, that was the first point where I thought, okay, another person is coming into the sort of arena we've created by being geared up to do trade work, they failed, in my opinion, because they didn't get that recipe, you know? And that recipe is very important. It's not something you can go into and throw loads of money out of. There's years of experience to get
an obsession and wondering about the light hitting the paint with the sun and everything that you mentioned at the beginning
100%.
of the podcast. So you have stood the test of time. I also know in your story that you acquired another detailing business as well.
That's right.
Which was Reep, I believe, that you then formed Topaz with. I've actually been to your Bristol joint. My friend Aidan went to have a day trial at Bristol, I believe, to come on board with you.
Right, yeah.
And it was strange. He worked on an 812 Superfast that I later bought.
Oh, really?
And he once turned up at mine and went, I really recognise your 812. And he's like, I've got a feeling I cleaned it a year ago during a trial when I went to Topaz. There's so many connections. It's been insane to watch the journey, as I said before, of every single Topaz kind of open and get to where it's been. What was like the moment at the beginning? You mentioned things like insurances. You must have, what kind of cars were coming through the door as you started with HRM? Was you a lot of Ferraris, a lot of Lambos?
Yeah, it was HR and Ferrari was the first one. That was the first sort of one that supplied us with all the sort of day-to-day. But I mean, honestly, Ben, I was charging peanuts for to get the cars in. I mean, when I think about it, the amount of investment required, literally time investment, and money and monetary value as well. People, they would come in and we'd do a detail for 150 quid just to get the car in, just to get them to start to do the work. So for us, it was like literally, I mean, you know what it's like, you know, you're running business, stuff like that. It's you keep on investing, and then you hope something will come back from it. You know, that's been the idea.
What year did you notice something to start coming back? Did you have that moment in your brain where you thought, okay, it is actually coming back now? Because everyone talks about scale, and like there'll be guys listening to this that think, oh, well, that's on a different scale to me. It's a lot bigger. It's not, because the percentages are always the same when you're taking risk in relation to what you're doing. So did you get that? I'm still looking for mine. Did you get that moment where you were like, okay, it's starting to come back the other way now?
You know, the first scalability is at what point did I see that this business can be scaled? Because it's a very hard business to scale. It's not like a restaurant or a fast food place where you go, this is how you do it quickly. Just flip a burger and you know, I'm simplifying it, obviously. A lot of people who own restaurants, and it's the hardest business, right? But for me, scalability, you have to find that. But once I started training people and they were doing quality to the standard that I wanted, I thought, great, that is now scalable, right, in my brain. Then we started seeing some returns, because I'm like, people are now able to do the work, not myself. I'm able to go and get some work, more work coming in. So now I'm starting to see actual motion. I'm starting to see cars coming in. I'm starting to see people spending more money with us. So that was the first point. And it was probably when, to be fair, it was still in Kensington, because we were in a lockup. So our overheads were low and our labor cost was relatively low as well. But we were able to charge a good amount for the work because we're in the middle of Kensington, right? So that's when we started seeing that. That's what gave us the sort of confidence to go, we're going to do it, but on a bigger scale in Premier Park here.
So for someone that's so obsessive and such a perfectionist, how hard has it been for you to employ people? Because I find that amazing that you've got 450 people, but you're that obsessive and all the rest. That can't be easy, because the thing I would think with detailing and detailers is it's a bit like a hair salon sometimes, which is eventually will they go and get their own small salon and try and work up the same path you did. And you must have had guys that have gone down that road from here too. So how hard has that been in terms of staff and people?
You know, it's a great question, because that makes me, I was thinking about this actually only a few months ago, and I was like, you know, someone asked me the similar question. They're like, you know, I've got a business that has 6-7 people, and I'm finding it being a nightmare because I can't get the right people. And I think for me, the transition is, how robust is your toolkit? How robust is your training program? How robust are your processes and systems? Because if they're robust, the people will come in, they'll fit into them. And if you've thought through far enough on what that person's role is, then you should be able to create a full working manual for that person. And all they need to do is show up to work. So for me, then obviously they need management. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying people will come in and do the work on their own, but you need management. I think my point I'm trying to say is when I finally got the idea in my brain that I'm not going to do, all the cars. We've done, I think, globally over 11,000 cars a year now. I'm not going to do 11,000 cars myself, right? So for me,
4 a.m.
it's a lot of 4 a.m.s. So for me is the point of how can I get my team to do the work at the level, at the quality that I want, and that makes me feel comfortable. And now it's just a matter of finding people who want to work with you to get to the stage that they need to get to.
But potentially because of your obsessive OCD nature there with running the business, and you kind of need that passion for what it is that you're doing. It's 100%. A very relevant thing that you're doing.
100%. Yeah.
However, what you kind of described there was more of a robot than a person.
Yeah.
Because you're being very robust with the training, very robust with management, very robust with all those things. You end up, the more you describe that, the more personality sometimes you take away. So a really different question. Have you seen Tesla's Optimus robots?
I have. And I thought, can they install film? That's the first question.
Genuine question. You see them at shows. I'm obsessed with technology and kind of what Elon's doing.
Yeah.
And I saw the Optimus robots and serving drinks and performing all kinds of tasks. Where's the personality? Because if you draw back all that stuff away from people, different detailer will have a different way they prefer to do things or a different procedure. It's like a chef.
Yes.
Because they're doing something that's very personal. Yet a minute ago, a lot of that personality was taken away because of trying to control 450 people and working practices and getting something a specific way.
Yep.
But do you still have people within the business that you're like, you have a 250 GTO worth 50 million quid come through the door? They're doing it.
Yeah, look, we still have that. Of course, we have our master detailers that I've trained personally that have been with us for over 10 years, right? So you have that. But, it's an interesting point because it's the emotional side, but also you got to look at it from the business side. As a human, you're absolutely right. You think, right, each person's got their own way of doing it. Each person has a way of their own character. But then when I was, going through my career, and understanding the life of business, I would have people coming in tracksuit bottoms. I've had people coming in with tank tops, I'd have people coming in and saying, yeah, I'm a great detailer, I'm a great PPF, look at this. And they're just not great and they're just not good. And they're trying to change the image that I'm trying to create. So it really depends on what you're doing. If you're going to Gordon Ramsay's restaurant, and you see a chef in the back, I guarantee you Gordon is not going to allow that chef unless he is literally doing things how he wants it done, right? Because if he doesn't, then that's that guy's restaurant. It's not Gordon's restaurant.
Do you think you've got that more under control at 450 people than you do at 50 people?
Yeah.
And is that because of more structure and more management, more people overseeing?
Spot on. That's exactly it. And again, it goes back to reinvesting. You make money, you reinvest. You make money, you reinvest. And now I've got a commercial director. Now I've got a operations director. Now I've got a HR person. Now I've got a recruitment head of talent acquisition. Now I've got all these things I would never have before. But because I have these people and they bring their skill set, and for example, my commercial director, Chris, he would come in and be like, right, I know how to talk to this dealer. Like, leave it to me. I'm going to talk to them and I'm going to get the contract. Whereas if I went in, I might talk to them in a different way, but he's talking dealer language. So now what he's done in the last 2 years, he's been able to add so much value to our business from something where we were doing okay with it, but he's just taking it to the next level. So that's what I'm looking for now. So the stage when you get to become a larger business, that's where you need to get to.
But that's the effect of people doing things their own way, and allowing people to sometimes do things another way. Have you been influenced in your training and processes by the detailers you have come through the door?
Yes. So I've had people come in and they've said, oh, this is how I do it. I've always, every time, I mean, until today I'm learning. I look at the process that someone does something, I'm like, oh, I like that. That's a really good, actually, can you tell me, give me a bit more context around that. Why are you doing it this way? Why are you doing it like that? Why are you doing it like this? And then if I see that this is something that is going to improve our process flow, then I'm like, right, yeah, we're definitely going to bring that in and start doing it. But what I don't want to do and this is years of experience of going through it, is trialing different things, because then who's going to end up picking up the bill because the car is not ready in time, and we have to get overtime, we have to pay overtime, we have to get people working all hours. It'll be me, right? So it's a hard thing. It really is a tricky. That's probably one of the trickiest from operational level. That's been the trickiest thing to do, is to get people in who have a skill set and tailor them to
Topaz way.
Yeah, that's been the hardest thing. So right now we get people in from scratch and we teach them the way that we want it done.
Oh, that's like almost Formula One, whether you're going to go for an experienced hired driver or if you're going to take someone that's come up through the training academy. And these days, are you more up through the training academy?
We've created a fully fledged training academy. So now we have there are trainers out there. I have 3 trainers that go around the world, different places, training people, showing them the Topaz way.
Did you have more fun in the Kensington workshop back in the day than you do now?
It depends what you mean by fun, right?
Did you enjoy work more?
No, I'll tell you why. Because then it was really stressful. It was really stressful. Now it's even more stressful, but in a different way. At least I know what I'm sort of doing now with it being stressful. Whereas before it was stressful and I'm trying to figure it out. I'm like, right, do I say this to the customer or do I say no? Do I charge this or do I charge that? How am I going to get more customers? Am I going to be able to get that customer? Is it the right customer that I need? So all these unanswered questions for someone who really is hungry to make it, it puts you and who is a control freak, it puts you in a position where you're like, I'm out of control. I'm out of my depth. I don't know what is the right or wrong way, you know? And I think that's why, for me, Kensington and those days were nice in the sense that I think back and I go, that was so nice and easy and simple, where it was just myself and 2 other people, or just myself to just think of. But then when I look at it as a business, where we are now, at least I've got people to help me push the business forward. Whereas before it was just me pushing, and my brother Mazen pushing the business forward, you know?
What was the impact when PPF was introduced? Because that was along your journey in the business. We look out those doors when we first started, and when I walked in, you've got the cutting machines and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Do you think the business would be where it is today if PPF wasn't a thing?
No, that was one of the key, again, me being in Kensington and me and Maz going, what are we going to do? Are we going to stick with detailing or we're not? And that was the thing. And again, my obsessive nature came into this, because we used to get a company to come into our studio and they used to be like, right, we're going to put film on your car. And I'm like, oh, that yellow stuff, that looks like plastic. No, thank you. I'm a perfectionist. I'm looking at improving the paint, not taking away from it.
Oh, I thought it would be quite the opposite. So I thought maybe what you'd have is suddenly people could understand that something was actually going to protect their car because they could physically see it. It wasn't clear.
No, it's because before, if you look at the perception of what PPF was before, it would be the yellowing thick. I mean, the film used to be this thick before. Like if you go and type in clear bra, which is what used to be sold, like old 3M stuff, it would look terrible on the car. So it would look like you have plastic on the car. So the perception of people back then was, oh, you're putting plastic on my car, you're putting film on my car. No, I've seen it before. My mate has got it. There's a massive line across the bonnet. No, thank you very much. I don't want to have it on my car. But so that was, for me, we had only one company that we used to work with, and they'd come in, and the guy who used to work there works for me. He was my employee number 1 for PPF. And he used to come in to me and he'd be like, right, this is the film, it's XPEL film, and look at it. And it was fantastic. It was like, oh my God, this is a game changer. I can actually put film on a car and I'm happy with it now. So I'm like, okay, talk me through. So I want it to go right up to the edge. Sorry, we can't do that. Okay. I want the PDCs to be a 2 mil tolerance around the PDCs. Sorry, we can't do that. Okay, and then
PDCs, just for anyone.
Yeah, it's the parking sensors.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, the parking sensors. The little circles on the bumper and stuff. I want it to be literally, where the PPF cuts out. I want it to be right next, very close. No, sorry, we can't do that. So this company would come in, put PPF on our car, the customers' cars. It'd take them no time, right, compared to like detailing a car for 2 weeks, right? And they're charging me loads of money. I'm like, hold on, and they're not doing a good job at it. So I'm like, no, there's definitely something here for me, because I want to offer this, but I want to do it my way. And that's how PPF started.
And would you say that is the most popular product thing that you do now?
It's 90% of our business.
90% of
Yes.
Topaz is now PPF.
90% of our business.
So what gets you out of your office and down into the workspace? What if there's a rumble downstairs, if you're in the London
Yep.
HQ today? What is it going to take to roll through the door? Not necessarily a car. I'm also imagining a project for you to come down and struggle not to pick up a piece of equipment.
You know, I think it's because the structure is so much there in terms of our business, right? I've got my brother who's the COO of the business. We have a CFO in the business. There's so many layers now in the business that I don't have to come downstairs unless I want to come downstairs, right? So for me, if I only come downstairs, it's because I want to see what's happening. I want to know. I want to get the feeling. But I've got all my studios across the world. I have CCTV, so I've got literally all the cameras everywhere.
Why doesn't that surprise me about you?
and the reason why I have that is because it gives me a real flavor of what's going on. I can even tell by the way that the installers are walking. I can see if they're productive or not. I can tell if they're using blades on the cars. I can tell if the customer is kicking off or not. I can tell. So I get a lot of it. I'm all about data. Similar to Tim, actually, to Shmi. He's a data guy. That's why we get on so well. I'm a data guy too. So I like to make sure that I have all the metrics in front of me to make decisions, right? And so when I feel like I need to come downstairs because I want to see the vibe, I want to get that feel, and is it happening in the way that I want it or Mazen wants it, that's when I'd come down. But from a project perspective, anytime a Zonda comes in, I'm downstairs.
Which Pagani London was in the UK.
Yeah, it was next door. Yeah,
is that going?
I think that's going. Yeah.
Oh, you must be absolutely broken.
know,
But you get them through the door every 5 minutes.
We do get them through the door, but I do missing hearing them going past.
So, as a kid, you must have been into cars, even growing up. You said you grew up in Afghanistan, right?
No, Iraq.
Sorry.
Iraq. Yeah.
Grew up in Iraq.
Yeah.
What was the car scene like in Iraq?
There was no car.
There was no car scene in Iraq. I thought that question, that answer was coming to that question.
I was there till I was 9 years old. So.
But were you into car programs or anything still around them, or did that come when you got to...
No, that was Maz, my brother, Mazen.
Wow.
He is the petrol head. So he is the guy who literally, when he was growing up, he'd have literally a bucket full of like small toy cars, and he'd be driving around, and his son now is an exact replica of him now, actually. But yeah, so that's where the car love came in. So Mazen would be detailing his car on the weekends, his Fiat Punto, a yellow one, sporting. And I'd be going at him, I'd be like, Maz, why are you spending so much time on like cleaning your car? What's wrong with you, type of thing? And he'd be like, no, I want to get it right. And I'm like, Maz, just get someone to do it for you, work, make the money, and get someone to do it for you so you don't have to do it yourself, right? And he's like, no, they can't do it as well as I can, right? And he's not very good with his hands, and he was doing a pretty good job, still better than everyone else. So that's where the whole spark came into the sort of detailing side. So really, it's Maz's passion of cars and my passion to own a business, run a business, succeed in a business is what makes me and Maz such a perfect combination,
Are you still that way now, or are you really numb to cars now? Like an Enzo comes to the door, it's an Enzo, you got to make sure that's done right. Like,
do you know what? I get asked that question a lot, and I think it's the sad part about anyone who's in automotive business, because when you're in it for such a long time and a car does come past, it's another unit. Whether if you're in a dealership, it's another unit to be sold. Whether if you're in a detailing studio, that's another car to be detailed.
That's special.
It loses that. But at the same time, I start now looking at things that are sort of unique. So when I see cars that have a very unique something to them, whether it's the paint, whether it's the stitching, whether it's something that has had some unique bit that the factory's never done before, that's what really gets me going now. I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
Would your parents say that when you were growing up, you kept your room in that same condition? Were you hyper clean when you were growing up as a kid? These stuff that's come through since you were young, where does it come from?
I think it's the obsession for something. So what I mean by that is, if I, for example, had in my room, I used to have toy guns everywhere. I used to love playing with toy guns, like plastic guns and stuff. And I'd have them lined up perfectly, going from the largest down to the smallest, right? And I think that's just the way it was. It's just my DNA. I don't know why. I don't know where I got it from, but it's a defect, right? When I look at it, well, my wife will say it's a defect for sure. But I need things done in a specific way. I've got a vision of how something, even my guns, my plastic guns would be like put in a certain way. My toys would be lined up in a certain way. Strange. I don't know what it is.
So if you didn't grow up in Iraq and you grew up here right from day dot,
Yeah.
do you think you would have ever taken the business to other countries? Or do you think that growing up in another world and that becoming normal, that you can just move between cultures and there's something in the middle, read between the lines, has given you the mindset open enough to think, I can go and do that over there and over there?
I think you're absolutely right. Being international makes a difference, right? From a mindset perspective. But I don't think that helped me grow our international business. What really helped me grow our international business, to be honest with you, is we've got a third partner with us. So we sold 25% of our business about 5 years ago now. And we had an offer from an American company to sell the business, entirely. And I was like, no way. We still have so much to go, and we're enjoying what we're doing. So we're not going to be selling. So I went to go speak to Amir, who is our business partner now, and I was like, mate, this is the offer I got. It doesn't feel right to me. What do you think? And we got talking. We had a kebab, and that was the moment that both of us were like, yeah, with Maz and Amir, we're sitting down, we're like having a kebab, we're having a marouche, and we're like, yeah, we can definitely work together, And then he was like, and he's a very super successful guy, built his business, sold it to Accenture for $200 million. I mean, he's done a fantastic job, self-made. So he's my mentor for sure, and I've grown as an individual so much over the last 5 years. International business has been something that I've always wanted to do, but I don't know how to do it. And he's been able to help us with that. He's like, right, this is how you franchise. This is what how you deal with the Middle East. This is how you deal with Asia. This is how you deal with Europe. This is what we need to do. So for me, without having him in our life, I'd be relying on paying professionals for it. And you never know if you're paying them and they're asking you and telling you to do something because they just want an extra fee, or is it actually genuinely the right thing to do? So for me, on an international front, that moment that we had Amir into our business, which again was another risk, which again is another adding. It was me and my brother all the time, we're like, but then we're like, let's sell 25% of our business. What do we do? Do we do it? Do we not do it?
What's that dynamic like then with you and your brother? Are you both very different people? Or
Totally
you both
different, black and white.
So does that lead to how many big disagreements you had over the years?
And how many scars I got on my head,
What's it like? Because obviously, unfortunately, fortunately, you'll probably tell me I grew up as an only child. You might see it seeping out of me. So I've never had that kind of understanding of being with a sibling.
Yeah.
But I can imagine that when my dad, God rest his soul, was alive, and I grew up in his business, my God, we had some clashes. It'd be so good when it was good. But when it wasn't, we wouldn't speak for 3 months.
I can see that happening.
Do you go across the CCTV and he's like
exactly.
for another showroom? What's that been like?
Working with Maz has been a real learning experience, because you start off at the beginning and going, right, who's doing what? And then I've got ideas, he's got ideas. We're both very strong-minded people, right? So we're like, no, do it my way. No, do it your way. Do it my way. Do it your way. No, you're an idiot. No, you're an idiot. And, the whole thing, you're brothers, right? That's what you do. If it was with a business partner, it's a different thing. You have that sort of almost formality. With brothers, it's no holds barred. I mean, you're literally, and that was the sort of issue and the positive at the same time. The issue was anything that you felt like saying, you would say it, which you wouldn't do to your business partner right now, right? And anything, and that was the negative. The positive is that you can figure out together, and you're not going to look like an idiot. Because if you go, I don't know, mate, come on, I don't know, let's just work this out type of thing, then both of you are trying to work it out. The experiences were trying to figure out what he does, figure out what I do. But when we got to the stage and realized what are his strengths and what are my strengths, it became evident.
So is that easier now than it was in the earlier years?
For sure. Oh my
Was it
God,
more
so much
fiery in the earlier years?
much more fiery. And if we weren't so close, we wouldn't be here today. We wouldn't have Topaz today.
Do you really think so?
Yeah. If we didn't have a strong relationship, we wouldn't be here. I'm actually going to be writing a book about the kids book about people who have brothers, who are siblings, and the importance of having them close to you and what you can do together and going out against the world and stuff like that. And that's what I felt like with me and Maz, you know?
Did you feel stronger than most entrepreneurs that would be solely running a business on their own because you've got Maz and your investor? So when your Amir came into the business, what was the big thing that you brought? You mentioned that you sold up for an incredible amount of money, so that brings cash in. Did that also enable the multiple locations and everything else to open and fund?
Definitely, yeah. So
what was the first one? What did that look like? What did all those locations look like? Talk us through that crazy period of running a business.
So it was obviously it was London, then we had Bristol. That was our first expansion, but that's company owned. So it was almost like that was the first investment that we made into a site outside of London. That was a bit where me and Maz had the most amount of like this, because he's like, how are you going to control the quality? How are you going to do that? How are you going to do this? All that kind of stuff. Where Maz is all about the quality. He's obsessed with it. So that was our first expansion. And then after that, we were like, right, we need to get international. And then we had a company who is a very prominent family in Bahrain come to us and go, guys, we love your brand. We know about it. We want it in Bahrain. And that was the first franchise that we did. So again, at that point, we had Amir with us, sort of, even if he wasn't in the business, we'd be talking about what we need to do and stuff. But when he joined the business, it was much easier. He would just deal with all the commercials, you know? So then we had Bahrain. Then when Bahrain opened, that's when everything, all of a sudden, I mean, I'd be getting inquiries every week. I want a franchise, I want a franchise, I want a franchise, I want a franchise, right? And I still get it till today.
We have it at Gertwings constantly.
You have it, yeah. And what do you do? How do you decipher between you should do it or you shouldn't do it? You know, these are all the 3 a.m. finishes till now that we have in our shareholders meeting, is because we're always discussing plans on how to do things. So whilst the growth, people will see the growth and go, amazing, look, you're growing, that's fantastic. You know, I want to do that. But if you look at behind the curtain of what got us to that stage, we have a shareholders meeting every Thursday and now every Tuesday. And we have it from 1 p.m. till 3 a.m. Me, Maz and Amir. Every Thursday for the last 5 years without fail. We never miss it, right? So that is purely just about what we're going to do with the business, where we're going to push it, what do we need to do. So there's a lot of work in the background that happens to get that. We're lucky enough to have a strong brand, so there's a lot of goodwill with our brand. So over the years of Mazen and I working and doing things for free, and the customer says, no, that shouldn't be there when it should be there. But we're saying, yeah, you're right. We'll fix it for you. You know, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of goodwill from that, the brand perspective. And then with our social media side of things, that grew and that grew and that grew. And then we went viral in India, which is one of the actual places that we're looking at now doing.
I've been to Delhi.
Have you?
Because back in the day, my life grew up in paving slabs, and sandstone comes from India, especially northern Rajasthan. Yeah. And I was determined to find a supercar dealership in Delhi.
Really? Yeah.
Just one day that we had spare, and I said, come on, going in a taxi, we're going to go and find something. And we found, I'm sure it was called, it's like Big Cars Delhi, I'm sure it's called like that. There was a building underneath an underpass surrounded by trash all around it, but it was the only contemporary, clean, small space, I'm convinced, in Delhi. In the whole of Delhi. And there was a Murcielago in there, and there was something else. But cars are stupid money in India.
Crazy money. Crazy. That market is one of our key markets. And once we get it right, and we're currently talking to a lot of amazing potential partners there, and once we have that right, that's going to be a massive market, you know.
How do you drive a fully detailed supercar down the road in India?
I haven't answered that question yet, to be honest with you.
Because driving anything in that part of the world, in fact, some of the countries that you've listed off that you're in, it gets fruity. Thailand.
Yeah, for sure. But that's why I film. That's why you need film. That's why you've got... So people in the Middle East, there's so much sand everywhere. I mean, if you go park a car outside for 2 hours in Dubai or in Abu Dhabi or in any of the Middle Eastern countries, it gets filled with sand, and that sand just damages the paint. So film is a necessity for a lot of these countries. So, but the price point needs to be right and the quality needs to be right.
Why haven't you entered the US?
We're working on it, but I'm leaving that to last because I feel like that's a whole conglomerate by itself. That's a massive entity, and we need to have multiple partners there.
Each state is like its own country.
Exactly.
Over that.
Spot on. Exactly that. And we're actually quite well connected there. So we're talking to people now on the East Coast and then also on the West Coast. But it's something that I think will happen after we've done Asia, Middle East, a bit of Europe, and then we go into that.
When you acquired your first business to bring into Topaz, which was Reep, right? You said that you had London, then you had Bristol, and
Yes.
then you acquired Reep, which had maybe 4 sites.
Yes.
Am I right in saying?
That's right, yeah.
Did you guys do that as you and your brother, or was that part of your investor as well? What kind of part of the business?
Well, I
was
mean,
that in?
that's our investor is now part of our business, so he's bought into the business. So
Was that after the acquisition of Reep?
Yeah, no. So basically, the acquisition of Reep was part of a plan to grow into the Midlands, right? So we were going to go into the Midlands anyway. We were about to open up a studio there. And then timing's right because Pre messaged me, who was the manager there, director there, and he was like, out of the blue, he saw Leeds opening up because that was the one that opened up. That was a bit close to home for him. He was like, okay, right, they're a few hours away now, type of thing, right? It's obviously still far, but he's like, it's getting closer. So then he called me up. He's like, Nabil, what does it look like for us to do something together? And then, about a month and a half to 2 months worth of talking and I like people to sleep on things, to really think about it, because it's different you having your own business to then having business partners and having people who are shareholders in the business, stuff like that. So at that point it was the right thing for them to do, and now they absolutely love it. So yeah, so they're still in the business.
They're still in the business, they
Yes.
still run it, but you acquired Reep.
Yes, and all the processes, systems, everything all changed. So
Wow.
Everything from Reep is now no longer. So there isn't anything there.
Was that a very stressful part of the journey as well?
For me, it was okay because I know it's almost copy and paste, isn't it? But for them, it would have been stressful because it's changing, as you said, individuality, right? It's changing the way things are done.
Oh, I'm guessing the thing is, and the reason that I asked that is because anybody listening or watching would see you as a super entrepreneur. Same with your brother, coming from the van to a point where you've got 450 staff across multiple locations, franchised across the world, brought in ownership and do that. But still, a lot of these things you do for the first time.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
acquiring a business
For sure.
and bringing it in. Like
100%.
franchising in the Middle East.
That's right.
You said that there's a lot more to come with pushing into America and all the rest
Yeah.
of it. How far do you think you will go with the brand? And is your strategy to exit, or is it for the passion?
So how far will we go? I'll answer your first question. I've got big aspirations, really big aspirations. If you look forward right now, I want to have 50 studios across the world. And in alignment with that, I'm opening up a full e-commerce / retail business, which is a Topaz Shop, which is now where all our products that we've used and we use across all our studios, now customers can get them. So if you don't have to go to a Topaz studio to have the Topaz touch, And so that's going to be the sort of Amazon marketplace for anything car care. That's going to be the Topaz Shop. So I'm going to be now opening up, pushing our existing detailing business. I call it detailing, but it's a studios business, and in unison having a shop, which is an e-commerce business. And then I've got, I think I mentioned it to you, then F&B is something that I really want to do later on down the line. Once we get to that stage and there's a number in my head where we get to and go, right, it's now I can make a difference to people's lives, because that's ultimately what I want to do. I want to have enough funds to then go out to businesses that are not just in detailing, that are all over the world, in different type of business, in different industries, and go, right, what can I have, what I've learned over the last 20 years, and I'll invest some money with you. Let me help you grow your business.
Planning on doing it anytime soon.
Yeah.
Because my boy, will I make a brochure for you?
Yeah. But that's the point. That's exactly it. That's my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal is to grow our current business, sell it for really good amount of money. Once I've sold that, then I then go into helping people build their businesses.
She was funny. I had a mad conversation with someone on the phone the other day that had been on this podcast prior. It was Al Barrett, who sold Grenade Protein. He sold for over 200 million. Super successful guy, grassroots entrepreneur.
Amazing.
And I spoke to him because I know he'd invested in a couple of businesses, and we're looking at different things similar to when you brought Amir in at the minute for our chicken business, Gert Wings, because we're going to that next phase. Yeah. So I had a conversation with Al, and he said, you know what? I'm so like lost for purpose at the minute, because the investments that I've made and wanted to do and thought that's how I would run out, they always let me down. Yeah. Because it's not us in them. He's like, some of them are good, you know, I can't quote word for word.
Yeah, of course.
He's really pleased with the ones that have gone well. He's got a clothing company called Through Dark he's really passionate about. But he's like, I don't miss the stress. I didn't realise how stressful it was doing that. And that's why I go back to whether you were happier in the sites now or the sites back in Kensington, because there's so many, I think especially in detailing, with all the little micro studios across the UK, the 1, 2, 3 man bands, starting little online stores now and their own cleaning products on them as well. All of those guys will be wondering, is it worth it? Is it worth trying to take the jump or the move or trying to enter that market in a different space to when you came into it, with trying to compete against Topaz Detailing and multiple others? What do you think to that? Well,
it's a really good question, and I think it's something that is there's a lot of people that I've spoken to that are smaller businesses, one-man bands or stuff like that, who I've told and given my opinion, and it's a great question. For me, to be honest with you, it's a different life when you have a business, a larger business. It takes a toll on you. Like it really does, on your family. It takes a toll on your time that you have with your family. You get back home and you're stressed. You're not gonna, your missus is not gonna want to talk to you if you're like miserable, sort of you know what I mean? And these kind of things happen, and a lot of people don't realize that until they start doing it. And then by that point, they would have invested a lot of money and lose a lot of money, right? So you need to, first of all, I think, realize what you want as a person. You have to be honest with yourself. For me, I was honest with myself. I want to be successful. I want to be rich. I want to be powerful in my field, in what I do. I want to be able to have this. I want to be able to help people. I want to be able to make the decision who I want to help, because I'll have enough funds to do that. In my brain was always like, I want to be that. I don't know. Failure is not an option. There is no way that I'm going to stop until I get there. So for me, I knew that. But if I was someone who's a detailer, who's in a van, you need to look at yourself and go, what is it that I want? Do I want to spend time with my family? Do I want to have a work-life balance? And if that's the case, then don't grow a business, because a business is a hard thing to do. It's not something that you can just get into and then go, but then afterwards I'm like, oh, it's all right, it's fine afterwards, you know?
What part of it emotionally do you struggle with the most?
From an emotional, now or back then?
Yeah, the last period of time, the last 10 years.
I think emotionally the hardest bit is, you think people will be by your side, but they never are. And that's been the hardest bit. The only person that's been by my side without fail is my brother, right? It's my business partner. And now with Amir, he's by our side like non-stop. So the general public, right now, if I give loads of goodwill to a customer, and I'm like, yeah, he's my mate, I know him, he's got me, he's gonna give me his next car, and then he might go somewhere else. That is like emotionally the hardest point, from when you invest into customers, or you invest into something and then they let you down that way. I think that's the most emotional. That's from a business perspective. Personally, I think it's the sacrifice on my kids, on my family, because when my kids were growing up, I wasn't around that much, and I tried to make my best to be there. But when I'm doing 2, 3 a.m. finishes, my missus would have to look after them, and my missus would be there with them, So I'll give you this example. With our first kid, with first daughter, I'd be there to try to be there most of the time. Our second, I'm barely there, because now I've got a much larger business. So when the larger you go as a business, the less time you have on the things you want to do.
Had you already started the business, and was it already quite visual in the sense of the building that we're in now when you met your current partner?
No, I was in the van.
Really?
Yeah, so she's been with me throughout the whole process.
Do you think if you had your head down, didn't have a missus at that point,
Yep.
went into this as a single guy,
Yep.
and were now at this point or 5 years prior, do you think it would have been extremely challenging to bring somebody into that life that hadn't seen it from the start?
100%.
That's where I'm at.
100%. Because the key with a partner, and again, we digress a bit, but the key with having the right partner is they need to be by your side. If they're moaning to you that you're not around and they don't get why you're not around, then they're the wrong person. If you want to be successful, if you want to put in the graft, you want to do something. I've got people that I've met, hundreds and thousands of people that I've met that have said to me, "Oh man, my missus is telling me that I should be back home by 5 o'clock."
We can all relate to that. And I say all relate to that listening because I think the audience is 97% male.
Okay, right, there you go. Yeah. So it's like get back. The missus will say, "Why are you not back by 5 o'clock? Why?" But then if your missus doesn't understand that actually you're playing a large part of trying to make a difference to your family, they need to be supportive to you. If they're not supportive, you're never going to do it because you're always going to have someone pulling you back. You don't want that at home. You want at home to be like sorted. You want your home life to be comfortable. You want your home life to be balanced, But if both of you are working, that's harder. That does make it harder because then she's got her stresses, you've got your stresses. But I think if your plan is to grow a business and you can make money from it, then she doesn't have to work. Then fantastic. Then she can be able to work out, do stuff with the kids. And
is there any similarities in raising kids to running a business and it growing?
Yeah. Be consistent. Be consistent, mate. I'm telling you, I know too many kids that honestly, if they were here, they'd be damaging everything, right? And they work on cars.
Yeah, your OCD would be gone, and the kid would just let you see it go across the CCTV.
The shoes flying. And it's consistency. I feel like if you're not consistent with your kids, like you are consistent with your business, there is no way that they're going to know, because it's the same thing, same analogy. If you're not consistent, if someone says to you, "I want a pay rise halfway through the year because I did something," and you give it to them, they know that every time they come through half of the year or anytime they feel like it, they're going to get a pay rise. But if you say, we only do our reviews once a year to look at your previous year's performance, then they will know that's the norm. That's what I'm going to do, and that's what I'm going to work towards. Same thing with a child. If one day you're like, "Yeah, no, don't eat on that sofa," and the next day you're like, "Oh yeah, it's all right, don't worry about it," and the next day, "Why are you eating on that sofa?" You know what I mean?
That's the relationship I have between me and my dog.
Yeah.
So I can draw similarities, but hearing your story, some of the hardships and how you've got where you've got to today has been unbelievable. You've had people like Jensen Button, Bruno Senna. We've not spoke about it. Horatio Pagani, one of the kings of detail, probably in your eyes, in the world. The detail he goes to on cars is widely known about if you're at all into automotive brands.
Yeah.
What was like a real pinch me moment person that come through the door as part of this journey?
I think it was Horatio, I'll be honest with you, because not from a fame perspective. From a fame perspective, we've had so many celebrities come through the door, right? And I can't mention them, but from everything from celebrity chefs, footballers,
why
actors.
Because Yanamai's dead.
Yeah, I don't do that.
So you have a completely different model.
Yeah, I don't do that. Privacy, yeah. We don't do that just because I feel like when you do that, then they will feel like you're getting something out of them. You're riding on their bandwagon, which I don't want to do. It's a personal choice. It works. Obviously, Yanni's incredibly successful in what he did in terms of getting people on and the people that he had on were obviously they're happy to do that too. But for me, from my personal perspective, you'll see even on our website and stuff, there's only Jensen, there's the Horatio's on there as well. There's only a few people that are on there. Just because I feel like I don't need to do that. The brand should speak for itself. That's my point. That's how I look at it. But yeah, so when Horatio came, why I enjoyed that so much is because he came next door for Pagani. And at the time we had a 760 Roadster for one of our clients. And he came in and he was like, "Oh wow, this is amazing. You got one of my one of my cars here, and we were like talking and stuff like that. So I got him to make it out like he's putting film on the car. We took a photo and sent it to the customer. And we were like, we got very expensive stuff. And then he was like, is that Horatio? But no, the point for me and for him and his son and stuff, it's the attention to detail. So when I was talking, and obviously he talks in Italian, right? So, but he does, I think, understand a bit of English. And when we were talking about the car and stuff, the details I was going into, he's like, yeah. And then he was going into the details. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm like talking to someone who gets me. And because we're going through every aspect of that car, every detail. When he's looking at the job, he's like, oh yeah, that's really, really good. And that's when he starts sending his cars. You know, so he saw it, and he
that's
said,
got to be a good seal of approval, right?
That's my point. I think that's why for me it was like we did our quality of work is great when you've got someone like Horatio who is so particular. Go, yeah, you guys are the best in the industry, and then he even signposted something for me to go. You know, you're like my extended family, Topaz type of thing, which shows the because we have the same ethos from a quality perspective, from a detail perspective, you know. So yeah, that was one of my pinch me moments. But yeah, loads of celebs coming through, which is great.
Well, what a story up until now. There's one question actually looking at my sheet that I've not asked, which I'd really like to. With being in so many countries, that presents mad different challenges.
Yeah.
There has been a war on the brink for God knows how long, especially over China and Taiwan. It's like the Cold War.
Yep.
How often during your Thursday sit-downs are you looking at like, well, we've got a detailing facility in Taiwan, like what happens if the Chinese invade?
Yeah, I know.
Is that something that goes through the conversations weekly?
Look, I think when you do it, when you look at the issue is with that kind of stuff is politics. And politics, you never know. One day a deal happens in the background and all of a sudden the threat goes for about 6 months, a year. Then all of a sudden the threat is back again. You just don't know. But within that time, by the time all these sort of threats are happening, we just got to crack on. We've got to keep on going, keep on trying to do what we do. And then if something happens, if shit hits the fan, we then got to deal with it at that specific time. But you can't plan for it's like planning for earthquakes and planning for situations that you don't expect to happen. But if they happen, they happen. You got to do what you got to do.
And is another one that I must ask before we finish is when you get a 250 GTO through the door,
yeah,
which you've had,
yes,
something that's valued at
50 odd million,
50 million.
Yeah.
Is there a different process to having a 30 grand Golf R that comes through the door? From an insurance perspective,
yes, just insurance. Just insurance. So the only process difference is that
who reverses it in?
Yeah. Come on, you're gonna have, yeah. You're gonna reverse. No, definitely the general manager of the studio reverses it in. That's for sure. But the process is from a paperwork perspective, from an insurance perspective. That's the only thing. We have to call up our insurers. We have to tell them in advance. This car's coming. The total value is going to be X amount. We're going to have the car over for this long period of time. Whatever. So from a administrative perspective, it changes. From a workshop perspective, it's exactly the same.
So if you do that and you say, oh, we've now got a £50 million car in the building's insured for like 50 million in general potentially inside of it, it's now 100 million.
Yes.
Do they say, okay, mister, we'd like some more money for our insurance for this job? So all of that comes into it.
Yeah, they love it. I mean, that 50 GTO, I think I was paying $1,000 a day for the extra insurance. Yeah. That's why it was like when the guys were like, "Yeah, we've got two in."
To be honest, for the value of what they might lose, it seems not bad. Like not a bad deal, to be honest.
I know, but I'm the one who's paying it. I don't have a 250 GTO. But it's we price it part of the job. We're like, right, if we're gonna bring in a car, the insurance has to be. If you want us to insure the car, then it's gonna be an extra $1,000 a month. We show them the paperwork. We're like, this is the insurance, right? But we also tell them to insure it from their side too. Something like that valuable, you need two insurances, I think, from my side and that side.
Well, what a journey since I first turned up here without a driver's license, looking around, being inspired by what I saw for the first time. I've always wanted to know how it come together. And since then, it's come together even more than that, and the picture's grown further. So, Nabil, thank you for coming on and chatting to me today.
It's my pleasure, man.
Apologies, we had to shut the door and get rid of the 488 that's parked behind us and the Rolls Royce, but work continues outside. Yeah. So I hope it sounded better, guys, in the second half of the podcast. But appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Man, my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you so much.